Alright, in our second video, we're going to really hone in on some of the problems that involve that third step that we were discussing in the last video, which was getting the variables on the same side of the equation. So we're going to do two examples here where we're going to have variables on both sides of the equation, and we're going to show you how to solve those. Alright, so on example 3, if you remember, the first thing we want to do is to distribute. So I'm going to distribute that negative 10 throughout the parentheses. That's going to give me a negative 10 minus 10n. And that will equal negative 8n minus 30. Alright, we don't have any like terms that we can combine on the same side, so what we're going to want to do next is to get all the variables on the same side. Now again, it doesn't matter which side that you move the variables to, it will work out the same either way. What I try and do is I try and end up with a positive variable when I move things. That way I don't have to worry about dividing by negative 1 like we had to in the last problem in the last video. So to try and end up with a positive n value, I'm going to add my 10n to both sides. So when I do that, I'm going to end up with a negative 10. My negative 10n and positive 10n over here will cancel out and give me 0. And on the right, it's going to leave me with 2n minus 30. So now I have the variables all on the same side, and all I need to do now is work on isolating that n and getting it all by itself. So if I take a look at this, I can see that I am multiplying the n and I'm also subtracting from it. So if I go through the order of operations backwards, what I want to get rid of first is that subtraction. So I'm going to add 30 to both sides, and that's going to give me a 20 on the left, and it will leave me with just 2n on the right, as those will cancel out. So the last thing I want to do is divide both sides by 2, and that's going to give me n equals 10. Remember, you can always check your answers on these problems by taking that number that you get and plugging it back in for the variable. And if both sides of the equation end up being the same, then you know you have the right answer. So that's the great thing about these problems, is that you can always make sure you have the right answer before you turn it in to get it graded for a grade. Alright, so let's look at one more example of this. Alright, this time we don't have anything to distribute, but we have x terms all over the place. So the first thing that I want to do is to go ahead and put together my x's and constants that are on the same side of the equation. So on the left side I have the negative 10x and I have the positive 6x, and that's going to give me a negative 4x. Then on the right side I have my positive 2x and my negative 7x, and that's going to give me negative 5x. And I'm going to go ahead and combine the constants while I'm at it as well. 13 minus 9 is going to give me a positive 4. Alright, so one thing I would recommend is if you have the x value all by itself already, is to go ahead and move the x's to that side of the equation. That way you don't have to worry about moving anything with addition and subtraction once your variables are on the same side. So I'm going to add the 5x to both sides. A negative 4x and a 5x is going to give me a positive 1x. That's going to cancel out and leave me with just a positive 4. So I already have my answer right here. Now I do want to show you one thing just to be careful of. I'm going to go back to the step where I had negative 4x equals negative 5x plus 4. If you did decide to move the negative 4x over by adding 4x to both sides, the important thing to remember is that when these cancel out, that gives you 0. So you need to make sure that you put the 0 as a placeholder there and not end up moving your equal sign. What I will see a lot of people do on this is when they add that 4x and it cancels everything else on the other side, they'll end up writing the negative 5x equals 4 when they move it, which is incorrect. So that's something we don't want to do. So when we do negative 5x plus 4x, that's going to give me negative x plus 4. Now in this one I have to subtract that 4 from both sides. And it's going to give me negative 4 equals negative x. And again, I'm multiplying by a negative 1, so I have to divide by a negative 1. And you can see either way we work this problem, we end up with x equals 4. It just saves us a little bit of time if we go ahead and move the variables to the side where there was just a variable and no constant, because we had less work to do there. Alright, go ahead and attempt the U-Try problems, and then go ahead and check those, and when you're done, move on to video 3. See you then.